Welcome back, everybody, to the new channel, Sean on Boxing. I don't know who's going to jump in today. Now that I obviously have a new channel, I'm not sure who's around, but we will see. Start with a greeting. Welcome in again. So, as the title says, today we're going to be talking about some of the big fights that we can hope and expect in 2024. Obviously, we already have some big fight cards set up for this year, specifically thanks to Saudi Arabia. Thank you very much, Saudi Arabia. I don't really understand this negative kickback from many Americans regarding Saudi Arabia and the boxing content that they're giving us. When somebody gives you something free, why would you complain? And ironically, this is what a lot of PBC fanboys were saying when the PBC first started. They were justifying the fights the PBC was giving us based on the fact that it was free. Why are you complaining about free? Even though the content and the quality of the fights they were giving us was very low, not to the level that you and I would have preferred, but because it was free, people were trying to pan that off, even though it was a lot of refugee fights, a lot of fights with top names against low-level fighters, not a lot of high-quality matchups. What we're getting from Saudi Arabia so far has been fantastic. That past card, obviously the heavyweight bonanza was great. We had upsets, we had great fights. Obviously, Wilder getting beat by Parker was a big surprise to most boxing fans. Obviously, we had some good fights as well. The AJ Wallin fight was a pretty dominant performance for AJ, sort of putting him back into contention as one of the top guys in the boxing world. And now, of course, we have what's been going on recently, the the Fury Usyk fight, which is coming up sometime soon, 1 month, and obviously for the undisputed heavyweight world title. And that's fantastic. The last time we had an undisputed champion was probably over 30 years ago when Lennox Lewis was a world champion. So to get it done again is fantastic news for every real boxing fan. This is exactly what you hope for. You want these big names, these world champions, these faces of boxing that you can rely on and relate to. If we want boxing to grow, what Saudi Arabia is doing globally is a very positive thing. What it's going to do, it's going to highlight a lot of the big names in boxing. It's going to give them a global audience to sell themselves in front of. And they obviously have deep pockets to give us, the boxing fans, the matchups we want. Not that AJ Ngannou is a fight we want, but, we understand the financial aspect to it. JA, what's up? Usyk is going to beat Fury relatively easy. Been saying it for a while. That, my friend, would be unbelievable. And it would say a lot about the heavyweight division that we've been watching, right? If that really does happen, it really puts things in perspective. It really shows you kind of that top rank PBC hierarchy that we sort of become used to. We see a lot of PBC fighters get highlighted and fanboyed, but then once they cross over the street, basically they've been exposed, right? And this would be the perfect example of that. We saw AJ and Usyk fight. AJ was ridiculed because of 2 losses in competitive fights where I thought AJ looked good against an undisputed cruiserweight champion and a fighter that's 1 fight away from joining Inouye and Crawford as the only 2 weight undisputed champions in the world. That itself is legendary. So if he's able to beat Fury relatively easily, as you say, that would be a huge statement. And it would really show us why Wilder looked like shit against Parker and why Fury looked crap against Ngannou. Because these PBC fighters, and I know Fury is not a PBC fighter, but obviously his biggest victory was against Wilder, right? A PBC fighter. It really puts things in perspective. And it would be interesting to get an AJ Usyk undisputed unification fight, trilogy fight. Fury has only fought flat-footed plotters since Steve Cunningham. Usyk is going to make Fury look horrible. Pound for pound number 1 for sure if he does. Man, if Usyk does that, he's definitely right in. I mean, he's right in there as for the conversation already with Crawford and Inouye. But if he does that, especially as you say, relatively easy, that would be a huge statement. A huge statement. And what a way to start off 2024 with an undisputed heavyweight champion and a guy like Usyk. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of the YouTube American channels, they're not going to like it. They're not going to promote it. They're not going to talk about it. It's going to be a very similar situation to what we had when we had the Klitschko's dominate the heavyweight division. Basically, American YouTubers and American boxing fans pretty much ignored the heavyweight division completely because there was no representation. See, that's the thing that I laugh about these kind of fight fans. When I don't have representation as a Canadian white guy, I don't care. I'm a boxing fan. I want to see great matchups. And really, I don't care where the fighters come from. They could come from fucking the moon. They could come from Mars. It's irrelevant. They could be 100 pounds, 300 fucking pounds. As long as we're getting great fighters and great matchups, I'm pretty stoked. And the fact that the Saudis are willing to reach deep into their pockets and give us that, more power to them. As a boxing fan, I'm super excited. They'll only give Usyk credit if he beats Wilder. And that's true. That's true. And then they'll probably make excuses that he's on PEDs, right? Which is what now Better Biev is. Better Biev's on PEDs, Inouye's on PEDs, but Crawford's not. Even though when it was Errol Spence and Crawford, then Crawford was. In fact, what they'll do is use Usyk's win as proof that Fury cheated Wilder. Well, they'll definitely push that narrative, won't they? I mean, it's ridiculous. But overall, I mean, that's a great way to start the year. We just had the great fight card last weekend, and that I don't know why I always forget their names, the two Australian brothers. Um, but that fight he had was Saul Sanchez. Of course, I remember Saul Sanchez, the opponent that got beat. But that fight was fantastic, potentially fight of the year. And coming up, when is it? January 27th, we're going to get Jaime Munguia versus John Ryder. Another great fight. And I've seen a lot of people poo-pooing this fight, downplaying it, shitting on it, acting like Munguia at 168 pounds fighting John Ryder is somehow something we should be upset about. Yet, I think that's a great fight. And it's a fight very easily that Jaime Munguia could lose. Very easily. The way he looked versus Derevchenko, a 160-pound fighter, who's to say that John Ryder is not going to beat him? John Ryder is a natural 168-pounder. Obviously, he's been in with the top guys in the division. Many people feel he beat Callum Smith. He gave Canelo a good fight, right? People thought literally Canelo was going to walk through him, and he was far more resilient than people gave him credit for, and far more active than Charlo was. And now you throw Munguia, who's never in a bad fight. Literally, as a boxing fan, I would always want to see a Jaime Munguia fight because you never know what's going to happen with his fights. He could very well lose any of them. He scrapes through, he ends up winning. He kind of pulls that Arturo Gatti out of his ass and finds a way to win. But in the process, gets hurt, gets dinged up, gets hit as much as he hits. But then eventually, whether it's his great motor, his output, or just resilience, he ends up winning the fights. And this John Ryder fight could very easily be the fight of the year for 2024. Very easily. In fact, what they'll do is use U6. Yeah, I thought that was a new comment. Sorry. But yeah, what do you guys think about the Jaime Munguia John Ryder fight? I don't know who's on the undercard, but I know that fight itself is fantastic and one that I'm very looking forward to. I mean, as far as the AJ Ngannou fight, it's a fight. The only problem with that fight would be if AJ ended up losing. That obviously would be a serious black eye to boxing. But I expect that he's going to go in there and beat Ngannou far more convincingly than Fury was able to, and probably stop Ngannou in sensational fashion, which would be a huge win, right, for boxing. Obviously, for AJ, people are going to say, okay, how much credit can we give you for knocking out Ngannou? Well, Fury, who many people said was a Hall of Famer, the best fighter of all time, the best fighter currently in the heavyweight division. He wasn't able to do it. So just because of that, it's a fantastic victory. And it moves, obviously, AJ closer towards either a huge fight with Fury, which really would be the biggest fight, or a rematch with Usyk, which would still be a big fight at that time, or maybe a fight with Wilder. The question is, what's Wilder going to do next? I was disappointed to find out that Wilder didn't accept that Jang fight on the undercard, because that would have been great. It would have been huge marketing. People would have gotten very excited about it. All the fighters would have been paid very handsomely, right? And then you could have had AJ and Wilder literally trashing each other post fight to help build up momentum for a potential fight between the two of them if Wilder was able to beat Jang. I don't know if he could, but the reality is, if he did, that would be fantastic. People would definitely give him credit for beating Jang and would push for a AJ versus obviously Wilder fight. It's a fight that we wanted to see for a long time. And, coming off of a loss to Parker, it's lost a lot of momentum. But if he was able to come back, get a fantastic victory, that just lights the fire once again. And for Wilder fans, I don't know what they expect, because you can't expect Saudi Arabia to pay for an AJ Wilder fight now based on the loss of momentum that just happened because of that loss. And they're giving him opportunities to bounce back and put himself back into contention. So the onus is on him. What's he going to do? Is he going to sit around and mope? Is he going to retire? Or is he going to show some cojones and actually get in the fucking ring, prove himself, and put himself back into big fights moving forward in 2024? I, for one, want to see him jump back into the ring. So when I saw Parker was fighting Jang, of course I'm excited. I think that's a great fight. But at the same time, I'm a little disappointed. A little disappointed that it's not the fight I was hoping for. I was hoping that Hrgovic and Parker would fight on the undercard, and Wilder and Jang would fight on the undercard, with AJ and Ngannou being obviously the headliner. And that would be a great fight. On this undercard, I'm kind of disappointed because it's a lot of UK fighters, a lot of people that obviously for UK crowds might be of interest, but for non-UK crowds, it's a lot of people that I don't think people are even familiar with. Let's take a quick peek, because I saw the poster, but I didn't look too much at exactly what was going on with regards to that. But what about you guys? What fights do you want to see in 2024? What are some fights that maybe haven't been set yet and you're excited about seeing? Don't be shy. Leave it in the comment section. Box rec. Here we go. The heavyweight matchup between AJ and Ngannou. Okay, there we go. So, yeah, it's hard to get excited about this card, but let me know what you think. Is there anything exciting for this card from your perspective? Obviously, you have AJ versus Ngannou. I understand the significance. I understand why the fight's happening. If it makes money, it makes sense. AJ doesn't have a world title, so he doesn't have anything to prove as far as that. I mean, if Fury, who was a WBC world champion, was able to fight a debutante, then AJ fighting a guy, it's not such a big deal. You have Jang versus Parker, which obviously is a great fight. I mean, Parker definitely deserves another big opportunity based on beating Wilder. And now you throw him in with Jang, and it's a very interesting fight. Obviously, we saw Parker get knocked out by Joe Joyce in probably Joe Joyce's best performance of his career. And then we saw him fight Jang. Jang ended up stopping Joyce 2 times. And people were very surprised. I mean, I went into that fight thinking that, the volume, the endurance would be too much for Jang. And eventually he would just slow down and end up getting stopped in the second half of the fight. But the funny thing is, neither fight was able to get to the second half because Jang just put a punishment on him, right? Beat his ass. So that never really happened, which, is testament to Jang and how good of a fighter he is. Now you have Parker versus Zhang. What do you guys think about that? I mean, that's probably the best fight on this card, right? And this is not the headliner. But if this was any other fight card worldwide with any other promoter, it probably would be the headliner. Olaf is in the house. A lot of gay J fanboying going on here. Sean, he has 3 losses and got knocked out by a short, fat man. A short, fat man who arguably beat Parker, right? A short, fat man that beat Ortiz. So you can be critical of the shape of the man, but I mean, Andy Ruiz has only got beaten by one fighter, and that is Anthony Joshua. And the fact that AJ got beat by him, you know what it was. It was more of him overcommitting to go and try to get the early knockout and getting caught in the process. I mean, he stunned him, he dropped Ruiz, and then he went in for the kill. And sometimes when you do that, you get caught. That happens. And outside of that, are you going to hold 2 fights against Usyk against him? Usyk is one of the best fighters in boxing today. And AJ fought well, specifically in the second fight. The problem is he fought Usyk style, and it's hard to beat a slick boxer being a slick boxer when obviously he's consistently and always been a slick boxer, and you're just trying to implement that style now. I like what he's become a lot more under his new trainer, being more of what he used to be, more aggressive. You fight behind a stiff jab, but all for the process of landing big shots. And it's not a lot of gay J fanboying. I mean, I know you are a Fury fanboy and you have posters on your wall, and that's fine. But the real truth is Fury going to be able to beat Usyk? If he loses to Usyk, then your whole gay J argument looks a little stupid, doesn't it? Because the guy you're hating on and criticizing ends up ends up beating the same guy that you're talking about. So how would that work out? Zhang isn't all that great. Well, it's easy for you to say isn't great, but I guarantee you were picking Joe Joyce to beat him leading into that fight, weren't you? And that was the same Joe Joyce that beat Parker, the same Parker that beat Wilder, the best victory on Fury's resume. Yes, Usyk is one of the best fighters today. When Fury buries him, hopefully you give him the credit he deserves. I've never not given Fury credit. Unlike people like you who want to hate on some people, I've given Fury tons of credit. Tons. Tons. When Fury went to fight Klitschko, I said, what the fuck is Wilder doing? Why is Wilder letting this guy go and try to fucking grab the glory? That should have been what he tried to do, right? But he didn't do it. He allowed Fury to do it. And he was the champion at that time. And Fury went in there and did what nobody expected, upset the apple cart, and really saved boxing by opening up the heavyweight division and making it more exciting once again. Unfortunately, he then lost all his titles, which wasn't the worst thing that happened because obviously it just introduced a whole new group of world champions. And we've had what we've had since then, thanks to that. Then he beat Wilder, which obviously was fantastic because it exposed a lot of the hype. A lot of American YouTubers were pushing fucking, for years leading into that fight. And obviously his victory against Dillian White was great, a great victory. Like no one expected him to dispatch Dillian White that fucking comprehensively. That was probably, I would say, the most impressive performance of Tyson Fury's career. So I give him tons of credit. I also went on record in a video on my channel that's going to be closed down in a couple days, that if you think historically, which heavyweight in history could beat him? Just because of the package he is, right? He's a difficult fight for anybody in boxing history. Maybe George Foreman, who was a pretty big guy and obviously a very stiff jab and crippling power. Maybe a guy like him would have been able to beat Fury. And Ali, we will see how Usyk does because there's some similarities. Obviously, Usyk is not Ali, but you can see the similarities there. So I've given Fury tons of credit, tons of credit. I'm not a hater. I can give people credit for doing what they do, especially if they do it fantastically and do it very convincingly. Uh, John McDermott. Yes. Come on, you guys. Don't be petty. People have bad performances, right? And that's my point. You know, Olaf wants to criticize AJ, but AJ's resume is better than Fury's, right? Let's just be honest. The big victories that Fury has, obviously Wilder and Klitschko, were significant. But the problem is he hasn't had enough consistency in his career to build up a solid resume. And that's fine. We know he's bipolar, so his attitude is up 1 minute, down the next. So it's understandable. He's kind of going what through Mike Tyson went through in his glory days as well. Just ask Robin Gibbons. But as far as bad performances, I never hold a bad performance against somebody. We saw Shakur Stevenson have a bad performance in his last fight. I still think he's one of the best young fighters in boxing. I'm not going to be hypercritical because a guy looked bad in a performance. That shit happens. People are injured. They don't feel their best. I mean, you and I work every day, and not every day we go to work, we feel tip top, but we fucking grind it out. And we're in the kind of job where we don't have to get punched in the face in the process. So, the end result is not quite as drastic as these guys. But everybody that's in, please, if you can share and like this new channel, I would appreciate that. Obviously, to get back to where I once was, it's going to take potentially a while, but we will see what happens. With your luck and your support, hopefully I can get back up there sometime soon. Obviously a while, but we will see how fast this time takes. But you guys still haven't said anything in the comment section about what fights you want to see this year. Obviously, we just talked about Parker and Zhang, which I think is a great fight. I mean, who do you think is going to win? Stylistically, I think Parker has everything he needs to beat Zhang. Better endurance, faster hands, faster feet, right? He could give Zhang tons of problems because Zhang needs a guy who's more stationary, more in front of him so he can load up his big shots. But that's not really what Parker's going to do. Parker is going to be more elusive, kind of like Usyk is going to be against Fury. Fury obviously is a much better boxer than Zhang is, so he's got better feet, and obviously he has quicker hands as well. So he's going to be able to adapt a little better than obviously Zhang will. But at the same time, Usyk is better than Parker. So, you got a little bit of this, you got a little bit of that. I want to see Fury Gage after the undisputed fight. That fight is personal for Fury. Don't count on Gage making it to the second half of that fight. Come on, dude. Fury is far from fucking a scary fighter. That's why I said I was so shocked and surprised by his performance against Dillian White. But that's not what you expect from Tyson Fury. You don't go into a Tyson Fury fight expecting an impressive knockout, because that shit doesn't happen on the regular, because that's not him. That's not the way he fights, right? He's a powder puff puncher for the majority of fights. He's not a guy that loads up on shots and fucking puts his back into it. If he beats AJ, it's going to be because he's a better boxer. He's longer and he's able to control range. He's going to be able to feint and make AJ hesitant, afraid to get hit by the counter, kind of like what he did against Klitschko. The difference is I don't think AJ is as limited as Klitschko. He has better footwork. He can move better. He can move and give angles a lot better than Klitschko could. Klitschko, at that point of his career, was a guy that wanted to throw a 1-2 and then fucking lean on you, use his size and his weight to drain you, take your legs away, so eventually he could stop you later in fights. Kind of what Fury is doing now. AJ, though, that shit won't work on him. I always said, stylistically, I thought Wilder was wrong for AJ, but I think fucking Fury is right for AJ. And that's the whole stylistic matchup, right? Styles make fights. I mean, Fury beats Wilder, Wilder beats AJ beats Fury. It's kind of the Foreman, Frazier, Ali fucking triangle. But don't get me wrong. I just said the biggest fight I think in 2024 is Fury AJ for undisputed. That fight is huge, giant. I mean, that is a global fucking fight that's going to grab tons of people's attention. First of all, it's a heavyweight fight. And then you get this crosstown rivalry sort of situation between Fury and AJ, right? You get one sort of demographic of British boxing fans, and then you get another demographic of British boxing fans, all sort of culminating in a huge fight, probably the biggest British boxing match in history, right? So obviously that's great, and me, I would be down. I look forward to it. AJ's short hooks on the inside will catch Fury. That's what I think. I don't think Fury wants to risk it against AJ. Fury wants to be number one in the UK. He's always been somewhat envious of AJ. And it kind of falls into that Kell Brook Amir Khan situation, right? Kell Brook was always envious of Khan and the money and the attention he was getting. And Khan, for his part, he didn't want to fucking lose to fucking Brook because he'd rather be recognized as the man, the face of the UK, not end up getting beat by Brook and allow Brook to sort of take over that sort of mantle from him. And I can see the Fury AJ thing is very similar, right? I think it's true. I think Fury would have to fight AJ because the money would be so big, it would be impossible to walk away from. The Saudis are going to reach deep into their pockets to make that fight if AJ is able to impressively beat Ngannou and Fury is able to beat Usyk, then that shit is fucking huge, dynamite. And if that's the way it happens, then hopefully Fury fucking beats Usyk's ass so that there's no rematch. That Usyk is like, I'm fine. I retire. I made tons of cash. I'm older. I don't need this shit anymore. See you later. And then we can have the Fury AJ fight, boom, pretty quick in 2024. That would be the perfect scenario if it goes that way. Yes, exactly. The Con, like Con Brook. Yeah, that's the way I see it. I mean, I'm not from the UK, so don't fucking beat me with stones if UK people have a different perspective. But as an outsider looking in, I see it has a little bit of the same similarities to it. But like Con and Brook, when the money was right, the fight happened because, regardless of pride and status, you can't walk away from fucking the bag, man. That's why a lot of these people that are putting so much negativity towards the Saudi Arabians and acting like boxing should just happen in the US. It's like, dudes, man, you had the fucking opportunity. You had the chance. You had the fighters, you had fucking the platforms, you had the networks behind you, and you fucking dropped the ball, right? Like literally, PBC, ESPN, obviously Golden Boy, these guys dropped the fucking ball. And because of that, boxing has needed to branch out to try to find funding to keep boxing going, especially to make fights that we couldn't get made by these US promoters, whether it's because they didn't want to risk their fighters or because networks didn't want to fucking spend the money to be able to make the fights that boxing fans wanted. But regardless, I mean, now that we're getting that money from Saudi Arabia, why are people moaning about it? And if it doesn't last that long, then fucking enjoy it while it does last. It's kind of like the things you people were saying about the PBC, right? It's free, it's free, it's free, it's free until it wasn't. And then everything was fucking pay-per-view. Now it's going to go to whatever it's going to, Amazon. And mostly every single fight is going to be what? Once again, going to be probably pay-per-view. And even then, it's still not fucking global. Because being a Taiwanese resident, I can't fucking watch it on my Amazon in Taiwan. And I'm like, what? Give me a fucking break. My friend obviously has Amazon connected from his account in the UK, so he can watch it. So I'll need to go to his house in the morning. I'm sure he's going to be happy about that with his two young daughters running around. But like, man, it's always one fucking hurdle after another when you don't live in America. So, what other fights would you guys be keen to see in 2024? Obviously, we also have the Lomachenko Kambosos fight, which has been confirmed. For me, I also think that's a great fight. I see a lot of people talking about why Lomachenko didn't fight Shakur Stevenson, but people are so stupid. See, this is the problem with American YouTubers. It's always narrative. It's not about fucking reality. Why isn't Shakur and Lomachenko fighting now? Well, because they'd be fighting for one fucking belt, for the WBC belt. The way Top Rank wants it, they're hoping that Navarrete, being the WBO champion at 130, can move up to 135 pounds, fight for that vacant title against Shakur Stevenson, to give Shakur Stevenson an opportunity to unify those two belts. Lomachenko is fighting Kambosos in Australia, which is going to be a huge fight. Great for Lomachenko and great for Kambosos. Lomachenko bounces back against an opponent he should fucking style against to win the IBF championship, to become a two-time lightweight champion. And now, of course, Shakur is going to be a unified champion if he can beat Navarrete in a fight that should be exciting. But people that try to look past that, we got to think about Shakur. Who did he look bad against? Awkward, long fighters with power. De Los Santos and Nakatila. And Navarrete is the same, but maybe better, maybe more dangerous. So that's a great fight, a dangerous fight. But if Shakur can beat him, that's a great win. And now you have Shakur Lomachenko for 3 of the 4 belts in the lightweight division on ESPN pay-per-view. And people say, why isn't he fighting him now? This is fucking why he's not fighting him now. You could fight him now, but it wouldn't be a big pay-per-view, especially Lomachenko coming off of a loss to Devin Haney. Or you could make it for 3-belt unification with only Tank Davis. And we know Tank Davis is not interested in actually making any big fights over there in the fucking WBA, WBA, PBC fucking island. But to be a 3-belt unified champion again for Lomachenko or for Shakur is huge, huge. And maybe, just maybe, if that was the scenario, maybe they could potentially make that Tank Davis fight. We know the Saudis have wanted to make money or wanted to pull Tank Davis over to Saudi Arabia for big fights. Maybe for a fight like that against Lomachenko or against Shakur Stevenson for undisputed, maybe that's the kind of fight where Tank Davis will fucking get his head out of his ass and go over to Saudi Arabia to get the bag and fucking get some literally legacy type of fights under his resume. Because that's what that would be. An undisputed fight between him and Shakur, unbelievable. An undisputed fight between him and Lomachenko, fucking incredible. Incredible. Me being a Lomachenko fan, that shit would be dynamite. But yeah, what do you guys think? Loma should say no to Shakur fight. Bob Arum wants to make Loma the top rank whipping boy. I don't think it's that Bob Arum wants to make him a whipping boy. Bob Arum gave him the opportunity to fight Lopez for what he wanted, undisputed. They knew Lopez talked the talk. They knew he was exciting, but he was young, brash, inexperienced. They did not expect Lomachenko to lose to Teofimo Lopez. And in reality, if he would have won that 12th round, it probably would have been a draw. It would have been a draw on my card. And it looked like he was potentially going to stop Lopez in the second half of that fight, in a couple of those rounds, right? And then when he fought Haney, the reason they made that fight is because this was the opportunity Lomachenko wanted. Here, Devin Haney's got all the belts. You beat him, you became undisputed. Here we go. This is the second time we're giving it to you fucking wrapped for you. And Lomachenko went out there and fought great. The problem is, once again, he didn't grab the fight by the throat in the 12th round. And even though the judges still, I don't think, would have gave him the win, even if he won the 12th round, uh, for most people, they would have said that Lomachenko was the real champion, even though people say that already. And now, if he does get a potential fight with Shakur, it's because this is his last fucking opportunity. At this point of his career, 36 years old, going on 37, to become a 3-belt unified champion and potentially put yourself in position for this huge legacy, big fucking Saudi Arabian payday against Tank Davis. How do you not jump at the chance? I mean, if Lomachenko loses to Lopez, Haney, and then say Shakur, or beat Shakur but then loses to Tank Davis, it's hard to criticize him for taking on the best fighters in boxing, who are all in their prime, when obviously he's not. All fighting in divisions where they fucking are bigger than him and stronger than him, when he is obviously really a natural 130-pound fighter. It's kind of like Oscar De La Hoya and what he was doing in his prime, right? He fought everybody. And in the process, he won some, he lost some. But you and me as boxing fans, we won because we saw him against fucking Chavez 2 times. We saw him against Pernell Whitaker. We saw him against Trinidad. We saw him against fucking Hopkins. We saw him against Shane Mosley twice. We saw Bernard De La Hoya fight fucking everybody. I mean, Arturo Gatti, tons of dudes throughout his career. So I can't hate if Lomachenko does that. And if he loses, I don't think it's a negative. Not really. Because unlike these people that push narratives and are just a bunch of fuckboys on YouTube that only want to fucking race bait, the reality is this is what we want Lomachenko to do. If he doesn't get the victories, obviously for him personally, it's disappointing because we know he's uber competitive and he wants to fucking beat everyone and prove his greatness. But at the same time, none of these guys have convincingly beat him. The Lopez fight was competitive, and I think he could have pulled out in the 12th. The Haney fight, I thought he won. And if he would have pulled out in the 12th, it would have just been even more of a definitive statement. And against Shakur, at this point now, I don't know if Shakur would be a harder fight than Devin Haney. He's not as big as Devin Haney. He's not as tall. He's not as long. And physically, he's not as big. I mean, Devin Haney is coming into fights at 165 pounds. Shakur Stevenson is not going to come in that big. So, a lot of the advantages Devin Haney had, Shakur is not going to have. And the people that gave Shakur problems are not fucking Lomachenko. So I think that's a winnable fight. And as far as the Tank Davis fight, I always felt Lomachenko was too good for Tank Davis. Always. Yes, he's getting older, so now's the time. Jump at the chance. Make fucking history by taking on these opponents. Win, lose, or draw, you're making your legacy, right? But I look forward to the Kambosos fight. I definitely expect Lomachenko to style and profile. I hope he fucking stops Kambosos because that would be a huge statement, right? People are already saying that it's a cherry pick for Lomachenko coming off of a loss to Devin Haney, fighting Kambosos for a vacant title. It's a cherry pick. But for Devin Haney to fight Kambosos for undisputed, that was legendary and legacy. You can't make this stuff up, man. People are such hypocrites. Hypocrites like crazy. Sean, pound for pound, who has the worst 3 LWBCers out of Drew Titan, BFTB, and 78? Well, the worst has to be Drew Titan. He's fucking one of the biggest douches on fucking on YouTube. And then I say BFTB, and then I say 78 last. 78, he's a businessman. And what he's doing is to make money and do business. So even though he says some ridiculous things, he's doing it all fucking for his audience. BFTB and Drew Titan are just douchebags. And, that's just who they are. Like deep down in the minutia of those two fucking guys. douchebag. That's what they are, right? You know, fucking Drew Titan is a racist prick. Fucking BFTB is just a fucking idiot. 78, a businessman. Guy's grandmother was a fucking pimp. He grew up fucking with this mentality to exploit people and make money. So what's he doing now? He's exploiting young black people, pushing race bait topics on YouTube and getting AdSense and fucking, you know, money off of them. Doing what his grandma taught him. Congratulations, 78. You learned well from the lap of your grandma, right? But that's what he is. He's a product of his environment, and he's doing the best he can by what he knows how to do. If we only all knew how to exploit people as well as he does, then we'd be doing better. But, you know. But by far the biggest douchebag, and he's not an LDBC guy, is Joan Boxing. Who got my channel shut down? Fucking dickhead. Like, think about what kind of low-life person would go to the extent of consistently using your video content, your name, your image, but then cry to get you fucking 3 strikes so your channel is fucking shut down. Not even like 2 strikes just to threaten you, but like literally 3 strikes to close you down. So I spent years and years building my channel, almost 7,000 fucking subscribers. And then thanks to this guy being a douchebag and petty, my channel got closed down, right? Like, what do you say about a person like that? A dick. And now, of course, he comes out with today saying that Anui is overrated. And explain this to me. If Stephen Fulton's win wasn't a significant win to elevate Anui to the pound for pound top 1 or 2 positions, even though prior to the fight, this individual said that he would put Anui number 1 if he beat Fulton, because he was so confident that Stephen Fulton, because he was black, and only because he was black, would be too good for Anui, would beat Anui, and stop Anui. So he felt confident making this statement that if Anui was able to beat Fulton, he would be my pound for pound number 1 fighter. Even though post that, Anui going on to beat Palace as well, to become undisputed in 2 weight classes, joining Bud Crawford. Now he has him number 6 on his list, not number 1. And his explanation is, you cannot harp on one fight. But the funny thing is, guys like him were using Julius Ndongu to make Bud Crawford pound for pound number 1. Julius fucking Ndongu. There's nobody in boxing history that ever fucking thought Julius Ndongu was great. There's nobody in boxing that thought that beating Julius Ndongu somehow made you the pound for pound number 1 fighter in boxing, because it didn't. Julius Ndongu hasn't fucking won a fight since getting knocked out by Bud Crawford. He's consistently fought and got knocked out by every single fucking opponent he's fought since Bud Crawford. But that was going to be a win that proves your greatness. Julius Ndongu. But Stephen Fulton, that's not a fight to prove Anui's greatness. He's got to move to 126. That's what people say. So he's got to move to his 5th weight division, where he's going to join legends in boxing as a 5-weight world champion. There's only five world champions in boxing history. And Anui's got to become the 6th to be recognized as a great fighter in modern day boxing. Yet the reality is, when he does that, they still won't consider him great. They'll probably put him number 3 on the pound for pound list, behind Bud Crawford and Evan Haney, and maybe 4 behind Tank Davis, right? Of course, all the black American fighters need to be ahead of him because they look like me, so they must be better. But the reality is, he would join Hearns, Leonard, De La Hoya, Pacquiao, and Mayweather, and Anui as the only 5-weight world champions in boxing history. Just let that resonate for a minute. And you know he's going to do it. Because who the fuck is at 126 pounds that he's going to need to prove himself against? Like right now, you have who? Ray Vargas, Figueroa, Lopez, Espinoza, who just beat Robsy Ramirez. Um, you have Otenbeck, Kolmatov, who's going to fight Ford. I think that fight's also there. So the winner of that fight. So there's six good fighters, and maybe you can pull out seven or eight. Let's just quickly see. But I don't see who on that list is fucking legendary, right? Which of these guys is somehow a name that's going to make him? Fulton didn't make him, but one of these guys is going to. None of them are unified. Fulton and Tapalis at least were unified world champions. None of these guys have fucking done that. None of them have even shown any interest in trying to do that. Featherweight. Let's check it out. So, Lee Wood's considered number one, but we know Lee Wood's moving up to 130 pounds to fight the Welsh kid, I think. Figueroa, Mauricio Lara, but I'm pretty sure Laura's going to also move to 130 because that dude looks like he was fucking unable to make weight in his last fight, which he lost. Espinoza, Lopez, Rio Abe, who's going to be fighting somebody soon. Who did I see he's going to fight? Somebody. Robsy Ramirez, Nick Ball, who's on this undercard of Anthony Joshua, Josh Warrington, Ray Vargas, and there you go. So there's 11 fighters with some recognition that Inouye could fight. But let's think about which of these guys do you think could give Inouye real problems? Ray Vargas, he's tall, right? That's his strength. He's tall. He's able to control distance because he's always taller and longer than his opponents. Josh Warrington, fucking Inouye will kill Josh Warrington. Kill him. That fight won't last fucking 5 rounds. Raymond Ford, he's slick, but he's a powder puncher. He's got no power at all. He's probably going to get beat by fucking Kolmatov, who's ranked number 22nd right now. So then Kolmatov will be in the top 10. Nick Ball is some domestic level UK fighter. Like, who's he going to beat? Really? Robsy Ramirez was supposed to be the name, right? What people were anticipating was Robsy Ramirez fighting Lopez to unify titles, and then maybe even try to become a 3-belt unified champion. Then when Inouye moved up to 126, he would have this figurehead fighter waiting for him, who's also part of Top Rank. But what they didn't know, he was going to get beat by fucking Espinoza, some unknown fucking Mexican kid who was an animal. Lopez, you have Ray Abe. He's Japanese, so that would be a big fight in Japan, domestic level fight. But is it really a big fight? 25, 3-1. He's never been knocked out. Only 10 KOs, so not much power. 30 years old, same age as Inouye. His last loss came to a Japanese fighter, Ryo Sagawa, who was 7-1 back in 2019. Since then, he's faced a lot of fucking nobodies. Literally nobodies. The biggest thing he's got in his resume is he beat an old-ass 40-something-year-old Kiko Martinez. And now he's going to fight Luis Alberto Lopez. I mean, if Lopez doesn't beat this guy, then fucking Lopez doesn't deserve to be a champion. Lopez, who's a good fighter, has power, right? 30 years old as well. Not very tall, 5'4", 66.5 reach. So he's got a shorter reach than Inouye. So Inouye's going to be able to utilize his jab against him. He's got power, but so does Inouye. He lost to Abraham Montoya by split decision back in 2018. He lost to Ruben fucking Villa in 2019. If you lose to Ruben Villa, what's going to happen when you face fucking Inouye? I mean, that's pretty obvious. Ruben Villa is a good fighter, but come on, man. He ain't that good. Ruben Villa beat you. Inouye's going to kick your ass. Like, literally. And the biggest thing you can say is he beat Joey Gonzalez, who loses to everybody. Michael Conlon, no power. Josh Warrington, overrated. And that's it. That's it. And, you know, an undefeated Gabriel Flores Jr., who was also a light puncher, right, with no power to do anything against him. So I don't think Lopez is a problem. Espinoza, what do you think about Espinoza as opponent for Inui? Obviously, he's going to be rematching Robsy Ramirez from what I've heard. I'm not sure if that's confirmed, but this kid, he's a problem. And obviously, Mexicans will love him, especially if he beats Robsy Ramirez and somebody else, unifies titles, beats Lopez. Then potentially Inui moving up to 130 or 26 pounds to face this kid, a Mexican guy with Mexico behind him. Maybe that's a fight you could actually go to the States and do in California. 24-0, 20 knockouts. Pretty fucking impressive. 29 years old, 6'1". 6'1". He's huge, man. He's literally going to be fucking towering over Inui. His reach is going to be fucking octopus-like. If he's able to establish any kind of jab, he's going to be a really difficult opponent for Inui based on his length and his size. Who has he beat? Robsy Ramirez. Outside of Robsy Ramirez, he's fought nobody. So obviously that's why it was a surprise that he performed so great against Ramirez. As I said, Lara, I think, is going up in weight, and then Brandon Figueroa. Obviously, Figueroa, if he's able to beat one of these guys, potentially like a Ray Vargas to become a WBC champion, he would be a big fight. 24-1 and 1. His only loss, a bit of a controversial loss to Stephen Fulton. He's tall, he's long, he's a volume puncher, right? A guy that already stopped and beat Luis Neri, Inui's next opponent. So, he's got good looks. He's an American. So if you do the fight in the U.S., obviously his English is going to be a huge asset to selling and marketing the fight. He's 27 years old, 5'8", with a 72.5-inch reach. The dude's measurements are longer than Floyd Mayweather. Obviously, recently he bounced back at beating Carlos Castro, which is a big win, and then Mark Magsaia. So 2 really good wins coming off of his loss to Fulton. Prior to that, obviously beating and stopping Luis Neri, beating Julio Ceja, which was also a big fight, beating Moses Flores, which was a big fight, beater Oscar Escandon, which was a big fight as well. So he would be probably the best opponent, if not Robsy Ramirez, that Inui could fight. But he would have to win some belts, unify some titles. Being part of the PBC, we probably won't even see him fight in 2024. Right? Because PBC, they don't have any fight dates until when? Fucking sometime in March. Like literally. Is there any fight date set for a PBC fighter? Any? Like, I have no fucking clue. I haven't heard anything. I don't even know if the PBC still exists. Let's go. So, Tank Davis, does he have a fight scheduled? No. Last fight he had, I mean, come on, man. Last fight this dude had was against Ryan Garcia in fucking April. So it's going to be almost a year for fucking Tank Davis. Think about what a travesty that is. I mean, I understand he went to jail and stuff, so obviously that sort of sidetracks stuff a bit. But for a fighter like him, as exciting as he is, to fight once in 2023, that shit's terrible, man. Terrible. And that's why fucking boxing in America isn't growing, because we're not getting the fights we want, and even the top fighters aren't fighting fucking enough. Benavidez, obviously he had a great year last year, beating Plant and beating Andrade. So we don't expect him to be doing anything next, since his last fight was in November. It's funny when you scroll through the pound for pound top list, and I mean, this is box rec, so don't take anything they say too serious. But you have Gervonta Davis number 4, Benavidez is number 7. You have to scroll all the way down to fucking 19 for Brandon Figueroa. And then 22 for Mario Barros. Mario Barros is the 4th PBC fighter to be ranked in BoxRec's pound for pound list, and he is Mario fucking Barrosh, one of the highest ranked PBC fighters on BoxRec. And then Luis Neri, I think he's a PBC fighter. He was. Spence, number 26. Casemiro, I think, is a PBC fighter, number 27. 28, Fulton. Ennis, 34. He's not PBC specifically. Tim Zhu. How come Tim Zhu's 41? Tim Zhu had a great year last year, like a great year. And he still hasn't moved up the rankings very high. And even though now he's considered a legitimate champion, beating Tony Harrison, Carlos Ocampo, and Brian Mendoza in 2023. The fact that he didn't get recognized as potentially one of the fighters of the year is also a travesty. I think I'm going to make a short video propping him up as fighter of 2023. But everyone, thanks for jumping in. I appreciate it. It was nice seeing you. Obviously, only 4 or 5 of you today. So me, obviously, coming from another channel, people don't know where I am. So, we will see if people discover my new channel. But thanks, everyone, for jumping in. See you soon. Obviously, I'm going to go live on, I can't go live Sunday. I'm going to be on a school trip, but okay, sometime next week. So I'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone, for jumping in. Peace out. Enjoy your upcoming weekend.